Hey there, welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Wednesday, May 24th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White and the returning Chris P. Towers. Today on the show, we are going to get into Bobby Miller's pretty interesting, pretty good debut, I would say. One hitter to buy, one hitter to sell, pitchers coming back down to earth, and much more. Before we get started, please like this video and subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. If you're listening on the audio side, download, follow, and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. Thank you very much. Chris, you are back. How's the wedding life?
I feel like I've been the returning Chris Towers
True.
4 different times this season already, and I've got one more trip. I apologize for how much I've been off the show. Just a lot of people getting married, you know. I thought I was past this. Now I'm in my mid-30s, but it's wedding season again. But I'm back. And sorry, what was the question?
Just how was the wedding life? Is that a new hat?
Yeah, I found it. I was in South Florida. I found it at a Marshall's. Apparently, Marlins hats are on clearance in Miami. So, you know, had to grab this one. $10. Love to see it.
You always find the coolest stuff on clearance when you're in Florida.
That's what I do, man. I go to South Florida and I hit up the Marshalls and the Pembroke Lakes Mall, and I'm just finding deals, baby.
All the local spots.
Yeah, shouts to the Lid store in Pembroke Pines.
God. You know, I was actually over there when I met up with Scotty. We had some dinner together, and I didn't know to look around. Or else
you gotta ask me next time you're down there. I'll give you the details, the deets.
Yeah. Speaking of local Florida teams, man, I know the Heat lost, but them and the Florida Panthers, it's a pretty interesting time there in South Florida. Anywho. Let's jump in.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
Let's start with Scott. Who you got?
All right. Well, let's begin with old Bobby Miller. Young Bobby Miller, I should say, making his major league debut against a very good lineup, the Braves lineup. He delivered some very good results. He lasted 5 innings, only 1 earned run allowed, struck out 5, walked just 1. And that's, you know, for a major league debut, especially compared to what we've seen from his teammate Gavin Stone, what we've seen from Brandon Pfaadt, to pitching prospects who were rated similarly by most rank lists. This was better. This was better than what they've delivered. It was a fine debut, especially given, again, the strength of his competition. Now you dig a little deeper in the numbers, and they're more just kind of okay rather than really impressive. So he had 10 swinging strikes on 95 pitches. That's okay. The average exit velocity he allowed was 93.4 miles per hour. So that's less than okay. That's some really hard contact Bobby Miller was giving up. Again, facing a lineup that generally makes really hard contact. So maybe you give him a pass for that. I think the most interesting thing Bobby Miller did here was throw his fastball just 31% of the time. He featured both his slider and changeup nearly as often as his fastball. And that's pretty good for a young pitcher, especially one who throws 100 miles per hour. He wasn't just trying to rifle in 100-mile-per-hour fastballs and thinking that would work. So that's maybe reason to be encouraged beyond just the stat line. I think if nothing else, we can say with this performance from Bobby Miller that he's probably surpassed Gavin Stone now in the Dodgers pecking order. Of course, Stone got the first chance, and he was the one when Dustin May went down. Okay, Gavin Stone's going to replace him. And then Julio Urias also went down. Okay, I guess we got to pull the lid off Bobby Miller too. But you know, when Urias returns, and it sounds like it'll be in fairly short order, I would guess Stone would be the one shipped out rather than Miller. And so if you want to take a flyer on Miller, I think there's more justification to do so now. I still don't think it's a must. I still think in most leagues there's probably at least one other pitcher who I would be more interested in adding than Miller. But there is definite upside here.
I hear you're saying, Scott, with the average exit velocity, again, some hard contact here, 10 swinging strikes on 95 pitches. That's an okay number, but averaging 99 on the fastball and a diverse pitch mix too. I mean, he threw 5 different pitches between 7 and 31% of the time. Had that slider that he used 26%, changeup 24%. He's 51% rostered. Looks like if he does stick in the rotation, which I'm pretty sure he will, he lines up for the Nationals and the Yankees next week as a 2-star pitcher. I don't know. I was a little bit more, I guess, impressed by what I saw here from Bobby Miller in this start, trying to figure out where he ranks among all the rookie starting pitchers. And this is just my ranking. And then Chris, I'll throw it over to you. Get your thoughts. Tanner Bybee, Bryce Miller, Yuri Perez, and Taj Bradley. I have those 4 still ahead of Bobby Miller after this debut, but I would put Bobby Miller ahead of Logan Allen, Matthew Liberatore, Gavin Stone, and Brendan Pfaadt. What do you think about where I've kind of sandwiched Bobby Miller in that mix?
I think that's reasonable. I think, ahead of Logan Allen, Brendan Pfaadt, and who?
Liberatore and Stone ahead of those.
I think that's perfectly reasonable. I think like Bryce Miller's a few more starts into his career, so I think it's reasonable to side with him, although I have a lot of questions about how sustainable what Bryce Miller's doing. So I think right in the middle of that range makes a lot of sense for Bobby Miller and someone who should be added, I think, in pretty much all leagues. If he hasn't been, he's 41% rostered, something like that.
Bobby
51.
Miller, he's up
51%. Yeah. So should be near universal, just because let's see what happens. Anytime you see a pitcher with, a 99 mile per hour average fastball velocity, it's just like, we'll just add him and see what happens, especially one with, good secondaries like he showed. It wasn't like an overwhelmingly dominant start, given the quality of the stuff and the fact that it's the first time hitters are seeing him. You would hope for more whiffs than this, but I think that's a little nitpicky. So I'm pretty impressed by what we saw.
Scott, the 2 names that I keep bringing up the past couple days, whenever we bring up waiver wire pitchers, are James Paxton and Michael Kopech. I think I would take Paxton ahead of Bobby Miller. I don't think I would take Kopech, though.
So when we're putting actual names to this, I mean, I didn't mean to sound like discouraged by Miller's debut here. That wasn't necessarily the tone I was going for. I agree with that assessment. Paxton was actually who I was thinking of when I said there might still be a pitcher I like more than Bobby Miller on the waiver wire. I would take Paxton over Miller. I would take Miller over Kopech, just like you. And I think the 4 rookies that you rank Miller ahead of, I'm right with you. The 4 that you put him behind, I might put those in a slightly different order. But the point is, Miller's right in the middle of those 9 rookie pitchers.
I don't think there's any question I'd take Bobby Miller over Michael Kopech. I don't know. Maybe you guys are more optimistic about him. I know we
all said the same thing.
No,
What's going on here?
I don't know what you guys said about Michael Kopech coming off his last start. I know it was very good, but that one's not even close for me.
It wasn't just very good, Chris. I mean, it was
right. It was a really, really good start. We'll go with 2 reallys to describe his most recent start. I don't think Michael Kopech's good at all.
You might be right. Yeah, I mean, we'll see how he follows up after that. But obviously, someone who had some pedigree himself, and I don't want to ignore an amazing start like that. Another name I had written down here was Graham Ashcraft. Another bad start. I just want to get this out of the way. We're okay dropping him for like any of these names that we're talking about, right?
If you hadn't done it already, then
drop him for JP France.
Oh God!
Oh wow!
All right.
I mean, I guess it's fine. Like,
that's not actually to say I think JP France is better than Graham Ashcraft. It's to say drop him for the next interesting looking pitcher who's available at this point.
Ashcraft is up to a 5.57 ERA and a 1.48 whip on the season. Still 63% rostered. I think some people might have held on for the 2-star week. And if you did so, A, I'm sorry. And B, you could drop Graham Ashcraft. Chris, oh my goodness gracious, for you.
Yeah, I'm going with Nathan Eovaldi, who was at his 2nd or 3rd complete game. It's been absolutely incredible, and not a lot of whiffs in this one, which I think is a little disappointing or not a lot of strikeouts given what we've seen lately. But you can't exactly argue with a complete game 1-run outing. He is still throwing his splitter more often. That's been a big key for him. 31% usage. It was basically tied with his fastball for his most used pitch. It's been a very, very good pitch for him. He's generating a lot of weak contact with it. He is generating a 36% swing and miss rate. You know, the thing with Eovaldi, God, I mean, going back a decade at this point, has always been he's one of those guys that looks like he should be a lot better than he is. And he's been pretty good at times, but especially when it comes to the strikeouts, the stuff always looks better than the results. And maybe the splitter is helping the results catch up to the stuff. Last season, he had a 39% whiff rate with it, throwing it 20% of the time. This season, he's up to about 30% of the time and still getting a bunch of whiffs with it. You know, very healthy 36% whiff rate. So I don't want to say for sure that this is real from Nathan Eovaldi, and certainly the, 1.10 ERA over the course of the month of May, and even better than that, including the last start of April. Certainly not going to sustain that, but feel very confident in Nathan Eovaldi being a good pitcher moving forward.
Yeah, I'd agree with that too. He's gone 8+ innings in 4 of his last 5 starts, a 2.60 ERA, 0.97 whip, right around a strikeout per inning so far, and immaculate controls so far this season for Nathan Eovaldi as well. 2 years removed from finishing top 4 in Cy Young Award voting. So it's not crazy that we've seen, really, really good production from Nathan Eovaldi in the past as well. Can he stay healthy? I think that's a different conversation. Scott, I see that you updated your rankings 2 hours ago when we're recording this. You have Nathan Eovaldi up at SP 38. Did you make that ranking change while he was pitching? After did you see this performance before you updated these ranks?
I was unaware of today's performance.
Okay.
And I moved him up to 38. So yeah, it's an interesting case, right? Because okay, you say he's pitched well before. He was 4th in Cy Young voting in 2021.
That was shocking
because he had a 3.75 ERA that year, and his career best ERA is 3.72, which was in 2020. So do we even count it? So he's been at his best a high 3s ERA guy, and now here he is sitting with a 2.60 ERA. And by the way, I mean, most of the ERA estimators back it up. He entered today with a 2.89 xERA, a 2.46 FIP, 3.24 xFIP. Chris mentioned the splitter use. He's also thrown his cutter a lot more this year. So he has a lot of hard pitches, and he may have just found the right pitch mix to optimize his entire arsenal here at age 33. And that's the other thing. Like this is a guy at the tail end of his career, and we're asking him to do things he's never done before. It would be a very Lance Lynn like breakout. So like it's not unprecedented. It was the same sort of thing. Lance Lynn has a few pitches, all of them hard, but just finding the right mix of them helped to bring out this potential he didn't show before. He went from being a pretty good pitcher to a great pitcher for a few years there. And so we're asking Nathan Eovaldi to do the same. It's possible. He also has a pretty extensive injury history. So How much do we factor that in when we're just thinking, okay, maybe is this a sell high candidate? Like, I'm not going to call him a sell high candidate in the same way I called, Graham Ashcraft a sell high candidate a few weeks ago, or Anthony DeSclafani, Bryce Elder sell high candidates a couple weeks ago. Because I do think, like, if you stick with Eovaldi, I think there's a reasonable chance he could be really good for you, but he's probably not an ace in the long run. So if you can get an ace return for him in a pitching starved environment, I'd consider it.
It's how I feel kind of about Bryce Miller, where like I believe in the skill set to a certain extent. I don't think it's a superstar skill set. I think it's a good skill set.
Mm-hmm. The underlying numbers kind of say that Nathan Eovaldi is pitching like a superstar pitcher. I mostly agree with everything that you said, Scott. If I'm looking to flip him, it has to be, entering Tuesday, he was the SP10 in head-to-head points and SP13 in roto. So you need to get like top 15, top 20 SP return to trade Nathan Eovaldi right now. And if not, I'm just holding on and seeing how long this lasts. And I haven't updated the rankings yet, but I think I'm going to get him closer to like the top 30 in that Logan Webb, Logan Gilbert, George Kirby. I'm going to move Chris Sale up a little bit. So I think he's going to be in like the back half of that range. And that feels right, just based on how well Nathan Eovaldi has pitched this season.
Would you give up Nathan Eovaldi for Luis Severino?
They're kind
I don't
of
think I would.
right, with the injury history.
Mm-hmm. Would you give him up for Tyler Glass now, who's coming back?
I don't think I would.
I don't think so. I think I just hold Eovaldi over both of those guys. But I think they're all going to be ranked in the same range, like that 25 to 30 SP.
Right. I have him just behind them now, and I think I'm with you, Frank, that I'm going to move him up with this latest start.
I'm doing the same thing.
Right ahead of them to the very early 30s in my starting pitcher rankings.
And for those watching on YouTube, I'm wearing a Texas Rangers hat, but I can assure you I'm not some kind of Texas Rangers homer. I just really like what I've seen from Nathan Eovaldi.
So now I just want to ask you, like, Nathan Eovaldi or the Mariners duo, Kirby and Gilbert?
I think it's kind of a wash, right? Like, why would you make that move? They all seem really good, you know?
I mean, I'm going to rank the Mariners duo ahead of him. So
I think so too.
If you're holding my feet to the fire, then I guess I would trade Eovaldi for them. But
I am holding your feet to the fire.
That's not my idea of a sell high trade with Eovaldi.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess a sell high would be like if you could turn him into Aaron Nola, something like that. Or Sandy Alcantara.
Dylan Cease.
We'll talk about Cease in a little bit.
Time to update those rankings then.
I think it would have to be Cease and another piece if I'm trading away Nathan Eovaldi right now. Speaking of trading, I wanted to bring up a potential buy high hitter, and it's Seiya Suzuki. It's not anything that he did in this game that made me say, oh my goodness gracious, but what he's done recently. Over his last 11 games, he's batting .350 with 5 homers, a steal, and a 94 mile per hour average exit velocity. Obviously, it's a little fun with small sample sizes so far, but if you look at just the season-long numbers, he started the season a little bit later because he was dealing with an injury, but the walks are up. The strikeouts they're up a tad. They're close to the same as they were last year. A lot more line drives. The hard contact is up, and I really like the way that Seiya Suzuki ended last season. And Chris, I know before the injury, you and I were both excited about Seiya Suzuki this year. I think I had him ranked as a top 30 outfielder before he got hurt. And the way that he's playing right now, the way that Cubs lineup, frankly, is playing so far this season, I would be looking to buy high on Seiya Suzuki. I can make an argument that, when I do my outfield ranks tomorrow, I think I'm going to get him close to, if not inside of my top 30 or maybe even top 25 outfielders right now.
Yeah, he was already top 30 for me. It's more a question of, like, I'll move him ahead of Anthony Santander, Chris Bryant, Christian Yelich. I think I can move him ahead of. Then I've got like Byron Buxton, Corbin Carroll, Teoscar Hernandez, Starling Marte right around 20. And it's like, that's tougher to do. I really like Suzuki. I think he's got a decent ceiling, but certainly don't think he has a higher ceiling than any of those four. So yeah, I think the highest I can move him is right around 25.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense too. And it's funny you bring up that group of outfielders. Scott and I were just talking about that same exact group last night and how they're pretty hard to rank right now, right? It's Kyle Schwarber and Starling Marte, and these are guys that have proven track records, but they're off to slow starts. So it's, I don't really want to be too aggressive in moving them down yet. But yeah, I think I'm going to move Seiya Suzuki inside my top 30 outfielders, and he's someone that I would be looking to buy high on right now. I think someone you might want to sell high on, Scott. I know it feels like none of us are actually believers in this player, but he's off to a great start. It's Harrison Bader, who went 2 for 4 with his 5th home run in just 20 games so far. Since returning from the IL, he's batting .290. He also has 3 steals. He has an .880 OPS, a career best 10% strikeout rate. He's putting the ball in the air a ton so far this season, 55% fly ball rate. His career mark is 41%, so we're up like 14 percentage points compared to his career. And the problem here is that the quality of contact is still really, really poor. I mean, 83.4 mile per hour average exit velocity, 22% hard hit rate. I think it's nice what he's done so far, but I don't think it's sustainable. What do you think, Scott?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, if obviously he's a light hitter in terms of he doesn't make especially hard contact. He is doing the things that a light hitter can do to overcome that and still provide power by elevating and pulling the ball as much as he is. And, it's something that started for him Well, I haven't actually looked at what the pull rates and the fly ball rates are, but since joining the Yankees last year, we've seen this uptick in power from Bader, of course, most famously in the playoffs last year. So, maybe there is something to it, but I'd be more inclined to say he's not going to sustain this pace. The problem with calling him a sell high is I think it'd have to be a pretty deep league for you to pull it off. This is the point I brought up yesterday with guys like Jarren Duran and I don't know, Taylor Walls. Like, it's easy to say, okay, they're not going to sustain these numbers, but their roster rate, like Bader right now is at 76%. Like he's not everybody's come around to the idea of even rostering him. So how are you going to trade him?
Right.
And I think Christopher Morel just got over that hurdle. He barely has gotten to a point where he's gone from, okay, must add to sell high ? And generally people aren't inclined to trade for players that they could have just picked up yesterday. So I think it's a hard case to make that you're actually going to get that great of a return for Harrison Bader. Doesn't hurt to try, though.
I'm gonna steal a Scott White bit. He can't keep getting away with it. That's how I feel about Harrison Bader. I don't know. Maybe playing at Yankee Stadium and the swing changes he's made can sustain themselves, but I don't know. I think if he keeps swinging like this, he's probably more like a 230 hitter than a 290 hitter, and I don't think he's going to hit for enough power to make it worth having a 230 hitter. He gives me strong Kevin Biggio vibes, but I've been wrong many times before.
I did read an article earlier in the season that he's using a new bat this season. It's like one of those axe handle bats that.
Oh yeah,
apparently
I do like
that. That worked wonders.
Handle bat. One of my softball teammates has one. I like it.
Oh no, I tried it. I didn't like it, man. I don't. It was kind of weird. Maybe I got to give it another chance. But in the article it said that Harrison Bader picked this bat up from Pete Alonso because they went to college together, University of Florida, and I don't know if this is completely the reason for the power breakout, but it could be something. It's clearly a change. Scott,
I went down that rabbit hole with Brendan Donovan earlier this year. Need I remind you? It's gone well. Yeah. It hasn't gone well. I don't know if you detect the sarcasm there.
It has not. You mentioned the name Christopher Morel. I think we should mention. I mean,
incredible.
He's done it again. It's now 9 home runs in 12 games so far, and we were begging you to pick him up, and obviously the roster rate is up now. And if you lost Jazz Chisholm, we kind of pumped him up as like a perfect replacement. And look, he's not going to hit 80 home runs this year, but he is impacting the ball really hard. And when he connects, it's going a long way right now. So
yeah, so like he has graduated from the point where we're just like Adam to now. Should you trade him? Should you capitalize on this unsustainable pace by cashing in or cashing out? They both sort of mean the same thing: cash in, cash out. On it by swinging a deal. And I actually wrote 1,400 words on the subject yesterday, so you can go read all about that. It's a really interesting case because, of course, we've talked about how Christopher Morel, in addition to hitting all these home runs, he's striking out a crap load, as he has throughout his career, last year in the majors, even in the minors when he was crushing it, he was striking out more than 30% of the time. But the strikeout rate he has right now, only one player who had minimum 300 plate appearances last year. Only one player had a strikeout rate as high as Morel's right now. It was Joey Gallo, who hit 160. It's the list of players who are productive with the strikeout rate, even over 30, which, it would take a lot of improvement from Morel to get that point, is very short. The way he impacts the ball, it's possible he could overcome that and settle in as maybe like a 260 hitter. And if he does that, the power speed is enough to make him a genuine standout in fantasy as a 260 hitter, maybe like a Byron Buxton type, something like that. So like okay, so I'll sum it up this way. The way I view Christopher Morel right now is he's a lottery ticket who 5 of the numbers have already come up. So that 6th number, we're waiting to see if that comes up and he's the real deal. The odds are still against it happening.
Yeah.
But at this point, it might be worth it just to see how it plays out, knowing the odds are against it, but you have a really nice prize if the numbers do turn out.
I've made the Javier Baez comp a few times since Morel got called up, and it's actually, if you look at the spray charts, it's very Javier Baez-esque. It's home runs a lot to the power alleys. It's not just like pulled balls. He's crushing them to deep parts of the field. And it's not 2018 MVP candidate Javier Baez. It's not going to be that kind of player. But, you look at Javier Baez and like he struck out 33% of the time in 2021. He hit 31 homers, stole 18 bases, hit 265. I'm not saying he's going to do that. That would be asking a lot, but that kind of outcome is, I think, within the realm of possibility. Maybe it's more like a 240 hitter. Maybe it's more like 25 homers or 25 homer pace the rest of the way. He might get to 25 homers at this pace just without being a good power hitter the way he's playing. But, that kind of performer, a very, very good shortstop / second baseman / outfielder, because he's eligible at all of those, right?
Just second in outfield.
Just second in outfield? Okay.
Yeah.
Like, I'm updating my rankings now as we're talking, and I'm moving him ahead of Cody Bellinger. I'm moving him ahead of Yoshida, Verdugo, Nimmo, just because those guys are all boring high floor guys.
Yoshida's been really good.
You're moving Morel up higher than I am.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, he's in the the top 36 for me right now.
I'm going to get him inside of the top 36 as well. But maybe I just have Yoshida. I have Yoshida at around like 25, so I've moved him up like a bunch.
Yeah, he's not that high for me yet.
I think getting Morel inside the top 40 outfielders at least.
I can't get him in my top 40. I've got him behind Lourdes
I found
Gurriel.
it very easy to get him inside my top 40.
And I certainly have him behind the guys Chris listed. So I have him behind Lourdes Gurriel, Nicholas Castellanos. Why am I calling him Nicholas? Nick Castellanos, Hunter Renfroe. Obviously Morel has a higher ceiling than all of them, but again, I think it's more likely that he doesn't meet it than that he does. So, I'm not saying you can't trade him. Like it's just.
I mean, clearly you think they should trade him to dummies like Frank and I.
You have to find somebody who is not going to use the fact he was on waivers yesterday as leverage.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, if you can't get a true sell high return, it's just not worth it. And I think it's unlikely you get a true sell high return. I'd be more likely than not to just let it play out. But again, doesn't hurt to try unless you're just short on time, because it does use up your time to try. It does.
All right, let's take our first break. And when we return, I've got a crazy game from the Blue Jays. They put up 20 runs in that one. I've got some waiver wire pitchers. We'll do all of that right after this.
He's one of the world's biggest stars. Now, meet his leading ladies.
I would have thought you on TV like this. You're welcome.
Action. Being a Stallone, it holds a lot of weight.
We're in our early 20s. We're at our peak, ladies.
I fell in love with acting. I just want to make him proud.
I know we're insane, but we love each other so much.
I mean, this is a dream come true.
The Family Stallone, a new reality series now streaming exclusively on Paramount+.
Quick reminder to sign up for our Fantasy Baseball Today newsletter. Dan Schneider does a great job with it. You can head over to cbssports.com/newsletters, punch in your email address, and press sign up. It's easy as that. It's free, and you get the latest news and articles delivered right to your inbox. If you're watching live on YouTube, you can scan the QR code. That will also take you to the website where you can sign up again for the FBT newsletter. The Blue Jays put up 20 runs on 27 hits on Tuesday night against the Tampa Bay Rays. They did do some damage against some position players who were pitching in that one. George Springer went 4 for 5 with a triple and his 7th home run. He is coming around over the past 2 weeks or so. Vlad Jr. went 3 for 6 with his 8th home run. He added 6 RBI. Matt Chapman, 2 for 5 with his 7th homer, 114 miles per hour off the bat, added 3 RBI as well. Danny Jansen went 3 for 6 with his 6th home run. And while we're on Jansen, no Alejandro Kirk in this game. Kirk has now sat out 6 of the last 11 games for the Blue Jays. He's batting .234, which is 2 home runs. And Scott, I know we spoke about him recently. We said that, we drop him for Francisco Alvarez. I still kind of have my reservations because I don't trust the Mets to do the right thing. But yeah, if you play in a 1-catcher league, this is getting pretty ugly for Alejandro Kirk.
Yeah. I don't think there's any reason to have him in a 1-catcher league at this point, unless it's like a 16-team 1-catcher league.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Who pitched in this slugfest? Jose Barrios was great again at Tampa Bay. 7 innings, 1 run, 5 strikeouts. Only had 6 swinging strikes, but did a great job limiting the hard contact. And over his last 8 starts, Barrios has a 2.88 ERA and a 1.10 WHIP, right around a strikeout per inning, keeping the walks and the hard contact down. It's been a key for Jose Barrios this year. Taj Bradley on the other side, kind of a mixed outing here. Only goes 4 innings. He allows 9 hits, 4 earned runs. Obviously, that line so far is bad. 7 strikeouts to 0 walks. Again, in only 4 innings pitched. 14 swinging strikes on 80 pitches. And the cutter was up 1.2 miles per hour in this start. The ERA is up to 4.44, but the underlying numbers still look really, really good. Chris, anything you'd like to add here on Barrios, who's been pitching very well, and kind of a mixed bag performance from Taj Bradley? You are muted, sir.
I have less to say about Barrios just because he's just kind of bewildering in a lot of respects. And just like there doesn't seem to be like a super obvious explanation for why he was so horrible last season, there doesn't really seem to be a super obvious explanation for why he's been so good lately. So I'm not 100% sure what to make of that. Bradley, we talked about the rookie pitchers earlier, and I think like you put him in that Bobby Miller range, and I certainly wouldn't drop Bradley for Bobby Miller, but it's hard for me to say with any degree of confidence whether I would rather have Bradley than Miller right now, just because those first 3 starts were so good when he first got called up. Then he gets sent down and everything just becomes a mess. And it's been a little messy since he's gotten recalled. And now we've got, Tyler Glass now potentially coming back as potentially as soon as this weekend. And so is Taj Bradley going to stay in the rotation? They've had a lot of injuries, and Tyler Glass now certainly has a history of injuries of his own. But it wouldn't surprise me if Bradley got sent down. So I want to hang on to Taj Bradley. I certainly don't want to drop him, but my degree of confidence in him has certainly been shaken.
They did say, Kevin Cash, the manager, did say after this last Bradley call-up, I don't remember exactly what he said, but he gave the impression it was for the long haul this time. Like they wanted him to settle in. And they also sent down Yanni Chirinos that same day. And Chirinos was one of the pitchers who was, when they sent Bradley down the first time, was getting a turn in his place. So I think they'll keep him up with Glass now coming back. Obviously can't guarantee it. But I share some of your concerns in terms of I have less confidence in Bradley now than I did when he got sent down in the first place.
Looking at the Rays roster resource page on Fangraphs, they have Tyler Glass now slotted in for his spot in the rotation, but that also still includes Bradley, Josh Fleming, Zach Eflin, and Shane McClanahan. So I think Taj is going to stick around. You can never know for sure with Tampa Bay, but just given all the injuries that they have, I think he's probably going to remain in the Rays rotation. A few waiver wire pitchers to talk about Tuesday. Brian Bayo, another strong start at the Angels. 7 innings, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts to 0 walks. He had 12 swinging strikes on 98 pitches. And over his last 5 starts, a 2.57 ERA and a 1.25 WHIP. Griffin Canning was on the other side there. He got back on track. 7 shutout innings with 5 strikeouts. Marco Gonzalez turned in a quality start against the Oakland A's. 6 innings, 2 runs, 4 strikeouts. And JP France, who Chris would drop Graham Ashcraft for. Solid start at the Brewers, 5 2/3, 2 runs, 1 earned, 8 strikeouts to 1 walk. Scott, what do you think about this group here? Bayo, Canning, Marco Gonzalez, and JP France.
I think the only one that's really interesting is Bayo.
Agreed.
Who, I mean, you mentioned the numbers. His last 5 starts, the 2.57 ERA. He does like 2 of the best things a pitcher can do. His swinging strike rate entering this start was 12.2%. And that's about what it was in this start too. So I guess it's still there. His ground ball rate, 61.9% entering this start. That's like Framber Valdez levels. So an elite ground ball pitcher who also misses bats at a pretty good rate. I mean, that kind of sounds like Framber Valdez, doesn't it? We don't see that combination very often. Bayo does have some issues throwing strikes. That's why the whip is so high. During that 5-start stretch, I believe he had a start where he walked 5. His strike percentage on the year is only 63, which is below average. So that is something that's holding Bayo back, but he's a young pitcher who appears to be trending the right direction, and there's a lot to like about him. We were talking up Tanner Houck yesterday after he had a good start. And I don't know. It's a close call between the two. Houck doesn't have the extreme ground ball rate Bayo does, but he's a pretty good ground ball pitcher himself and has been an even better bat misser than Bayo. Oof, say that 5 times fast. I think I have a slight preference for Houck, but they're both rostered in less than 50% of CBS Sports leagues, and I could see that changing in short order. We should probably mention France here because he did have a good start, and he's really only had 1 bad start since getting called up. It was an awful start his last time out. I don't see a lot to get excited about. You know, he doesn't get a lot of swinging strikes and doesn't get a lot of ground balls. It's just the opposite of Bayo. He's gotten burned by home runs. And I don't see enough upside here to justify the downside with JP France.
Chris, who would you rather have? Brian Bayo, who's 43% rostered, or Bobby Miller, who's 51%?
I think I'd rather have Bobby Miller. I guess there's less certainty about the role long term. You know, Bayo, the Red Sox did just move Nick Pivetta back into the bullpen, which, you know, say what you want about Nick Pivetta, but he was adamant that he didn't want to be pitching out of the bullpen. So they're accepting some friction from that in that regard in order to make that move. So, you know, there's that's at least somewhat of a commitment to Houck and Bayo. So I think you can make that case. I think Miller's probably the more talented pitcher.
I think it's close. I really like Brian Bayo, and he had some prospect pedigree too last year.
Yeah.
He got called up, and he throws hard, and he's got a changeup and a slider, and worked out with Pedro Martinez in the offseason and stuff. So
it's clear. I'll put it this way. If you're deciding between Miller and Bayo on the waiver wire, all the buzz is with Miller right now.
Yeah.
I was looking at most viewed pitchers, starting pitchers. I was isolating just the pitchers, not most viewed players. Bayo didn't even appear. He wasn't on the 2 columns that show on the roster trends page. Nobody's looking at Bayo right now.
They're sleeping.
So, yeah, well, sure, he's a genuine sleeper right now. But that you can take advantage of everybody sleeping if you're having to figure out how to make use of very few roster spots and go Miller instead.
The stakes are lower.
Yep.
In passing on Bayo.
That is fair. Let's talk about a few waiver wire hitters here. 2 outfielders that stood out to me. Michael Conforto stays hot. He went 2 for 5 with his 10th home run, 2 runs, and 2 RBI. And now in the month of May, he's only batting .235, but that comes with 6 homers and an .858 OPS. He's got the strikeouts down. In April, it was 33% strikeout rate. It's now right around 20% in the month of May. Again, that's Michael Conforto. Lane Thomas, who we've talked about a lot recently. He went 2 for 4 with his 7th home run, and it just feels like he should be rostered in more than 50% of leagues. Scott, what do you think? Lane Thomas versus Conforto, if you're looking for an outfielder. Probably a shallow league.
Yeah, I mean, Conforto has more upside, I would say. and he's been showing it recently with this nice home run binge he's been on. Obviously, missed a lot of time with injury prior to this year, so you could understand him being slow to come around. I think Lane Thomas, his utility is pretty limited outside of 5 outfielder leagues, and 5 outfielder leagues probably covers the 50% that he's rostered in.
Yep.
Let's see, average points per game. If we're thinking like a points league context, 2.78. That's pretty good. It's not must roster territory, but it puts him in the same range as.
Worth pointing out, I think we probably all agree he's probably playing a little over his head at this point.
Lane Thomas, yeah.
Yeah, like averaging
Probably.
278 points per game while playing probably better than he likely will moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, the fact he's hitting almost 300, I mean, that's
250
but,
XBA.
But there is a power speed combo there that he hasn't sustained for long stretches. Like he's had these little bursts the last 2 seasons that make you wonder if there's more. So I'm not sure we've seen Lane Thomas have his career year yet, and maybe this is it. But the point is it's a low ceiling player. So I don't think you're missing out on much if you just don't have room for him.
All right. Matt McClain went 1 for 3 with a walk and hit his first career home run. He is just 51% rostered. Chris, do you think that number should be higher? Because, if Matt McClain comes anywhere close to the upside that he showed in the minors, then he should be a contributor regardless of format, head-to-head points, and in any type of roto or categories.
And the thing he has going for him in both formats is, I believe, 7 straight games batting second for the Reds. I don't know if he's batted second in every game, but he's been up there, and that's a big deal. That means an extra plate appearance per game, over batting at the bottom of the lineup, more or less. So I do think that's, what is he at 51% roster? That should definitely be higher. I think he's worth rostering in pretty much any format, less so, certainly not a must roster player in points leagues, but I think he's, worth having around for sure.
Worth pointing out that he has a 41% strikeout rate in 7 games, small sample size, but 13 strikeouts in 32 plate appearances. Obviously that's very high, but again, pretty massive upside there for Matt McClain. Scott, in 1 catcher leagues, let's say we're looking to drop Alejandro Kirk. You're just done with him. Who would you rather have, Elias Diaz or Gabriel Moreno, who both had good games on Tuesday?
We'll point out Elias Diaz was one of my sleeper hitters for this week. It's not often I include a catcher on that list, but I did this week, and it's going well. And I'm going to say Elias Diaz. Moreno, in spite of his home run today, has just been completely punchless. And, I don't know how long this is going to last for Elias Diaz, but the point is if unless you have a stud in a 1 catcher league, like you can swap out those guys at will
until their next road trip. I would say is roughly as long as it will last.
Sure.
In deeper leagues, I see someone here got to my notes and they wrote Mickey Mehniak.
Wow.
According to Scott, does it again. Went 1 for 3 with his 4th home run, and the guy's on fire. They sat down Taylor Ward once again to get Moniak in the lineup. And Owen Miller is the other name. He went 3 for 4 with a sock and a shoe, his 3rd homer, his 5th steal, and he's batting .347 with an .893 OPS. The quality of contact looks very poor, so I'm not really sure how Owen Miller is pulling this off. But Chris, any thoughts here? Maybe you like Mehniak a little bit more than Scott.
I wouldn't say that, but he's, I don't know, you hit 4 home runs in 10 games and you're a former number 1 overall pick and you're hitting the ball hard. Like, it's not to say there's nothing interesting about him. And we have a couple of these every year. Taylor Ward last year being one of them, Brandon Drury last year. There are probably other ones who don't currently play for the Los Angeles Angels that I could point to. But the point is that guys come out of relatively nowhere to have productive seasons with some regularity, and that could be what we're seeing with Mickey Moniak. It's not, I don't think it's likely, certainly less likely than Christopher Morel, but I don't want to write it off entirely.
He has had good numbers in the minors the last 2 years. Missed a lot of time with injury, so we're talking small samples in each case. But 308 with a 939 OPS this year, 312 with a 962 OPS last year. So there may be some legitimacy to it. His plate discipline is awful. Even in the minors, it's been awful. And the fact he's a left-handed hitter, I think the odds are against him emerging as a full-timer, especially since Taylor Ward is still in the mix. I know Moniak's been playing more than him lately.
But hasn't faced the lefty yet.
That may just be a hot hand thing. I would be surprised if Moniak cleared the mixed league hurdle, certainly the 3 outfielder hurdle. I'd be stunned if he cleared the 3 outfield league hurdle. I think he remains just kind of an interesting low-end target.
All right, let's take our final break. And when we return, going to run through some news. I've got pitchers who are slowing down and much more here on Fantasy Baseball Today.
Come and get it.
So much new Beavis.
So when are we going to put those needles in? Ow, my back.
So much new Butthead.
Yeah, baby. Parenthood is cool.
I now pronounce you husband and husband.
This is the happiest day of my life.
So many all-new reasons.
Hey, old dimwit at Earthling.
To stay on the couch.
Let the games begin.
An all-new season of Beavis and Butthead now streaming exclusively on Paramount+. Use promo code NACHOS for 1 month free.
Welcome back, and big shout out to the 537 people watching us live right now. Hit that like button if you haven't already, and make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that as well. Some news and notes. Jacob deGrom threw a 32-pitch bullpen session Monday that apparently went really well. deGrom is scheduled to throw another bullpen this Friday. Manny Machado took swings off a tee Tuesday. Manager Bob Melvin said he's not sure when Machado will be ready to come off the IL. Carlos Correa was scratched from the lineup with a bruised left heel. Carlos Rodon said his back discomfort is gone and that he's hoping to throw off a mound soon. Remains without a timetable, but some good news in a season where we haven't had much from Carlos Rodon. Matthew Liberatore was available out of the bullpen again on Tuesday. I didn't see if he actually pitched. I hope not. Scott, what's going on here?
What's going on here is they have 6 pitchers for 5 spots, and Liberatore earned a spot. Well, they think they do. And Liberatore earned a spot on the roster with his first startup for the minors, where he was, of course, pitching well. So they're not really sure how to make all the pieces fit, and they just keep making Liberatore available in the bullpen. And that's part of the reason why Bobby Miller's at least more attractive than him.
And Matthew Liberatore did not pitch on Tuesday night, but yeah, it looks like they're trying to find any reason not to start Liberatore right now. And I had like a mini rant about it yesterday. I'm not going to get back into it.
I just exempting Adam Wainwright, who is a legend, who will get as many opportunities as he wants for that team for as long as he wants. They've probably got 3 guys in the rotation they could very easily remove for Matthew Liberatore if they really wanted to. The fact that they don't is somewhat frustrating.
I mean, Jordan Montgomery he's rock solid. He's a high floor pitcher.
He's fine.
I mean, any of like Jack Flaherty, I get it. You're still trying to squeeze something out of him. Like
Flaherty, I think you leave him. He's shown enough upside. Montgomery, okay, he's been pretty good since getting there. The numbers this season pretty bad.
Steven Matz,
Steven Matz,
just his last 2 starts have been bad.
I guess they gave Steven Matz a decent amount of money, but and even Miles Michaelis.
Matz can go.
Yeah,
it kind of feels like the management they don't want to own up to the mistake they made by signing Matz.
Unserious organization right now, the St. Louis Cardinals. That is my opinion. They will figure it out. They are a professional ball club with a good track record. They've earned the benefit of the doubt. The last month or so has been a clown show in St. Louis.
They have turned it around for whatever it's worth, Chris.
I'm not talking about the results on the field. We're talking process here.
Yes, that I think we could all agree with. Ty France was removed after getting hit by a pitch on his wrist. Brandon Lau was scratched from the lineup due to a stiff neck. Kenta Maeda threw another bullpen session Tuesday and is closing in on a rehab assignment. And when he returns, the Twins will either have to go with a 6-man rotation or one of Bailey Ober or Louis Varland will likely get the boot. unfortunately. Dustin May was transferred to the 60-day IL, which ensures he'll be out through the All-Star break. Kyle Muller was optioned to AAA, and Trevor May was activated from the IL. Mickey Moniak, which we mentioned earlier, started again on Tuesday as Taylor Ward remained on the bench. TJ Friedl was activated by the Reds and was leading off on Tuesday, which meant Jonathan India was batting third in the lineup. So perhaps more RBI opportunities for India moving forward if they stick with that alignment. Maybe a few less steals if he's hitting in the middle of the lineup. Kodai Senga had his start moved from Tuesday to Wednesday to prevent him from pitching on normal rest at Coors Field this weekend. Domingo Germán is slated to rejoin the Yankees rotation on Monday in Seattle, which will likely make him a 2-star pitcher. Jake Berger took grounders at second base, and it's possible he plays there once Eloy Jimenez returns. The other piece of the puzzle, however, is that Elvis Andrus will start a rehab assignment next week. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know that he needs to play, but maybe.
No.
The other piece to that puzzle is Jake Berger did have a golden sombrero tonight.
Ooh.
I got 5 strikeouts. That's
Yeah,
worse than
5
the golden
strikeouts.
sombrero.
Platinum.
Oh, platinum sombrero. Sorry.
There you go.
Platinum. My gosh. Matt Mervis was dropped to 9th in the lineup and responded by going 2 for 3 with a walk and hit his second home run. Trevor Larnach was placed on the IL while he recovers from pneumonia, and Denelson Lamet could potentially join the Rockies starting rotation later this week. Pitchers who are coming back down to earth in the month of May. Scott, we had this conversation about Corbin Burns yesterday. I think it's only fair to have a similar one about Garrett Cole, who was going up against the Orioles. He went 5 innings. He allowed 5 runs. He had more walks than strikeouts. 3 walks, 2 strikeouts, 10 hard hits allowed in this game. Garrett Cole did not allow a home run in the first 7 starts this season. He has now allowed 6 homers over his last 4 starts. You dig a little bit deeper, Scott, and a lot of the numbers look very similar to Corbin Burns, except Garrett Cole perhaps has gotten a little bit lucky, while Corbin Burns has gotten unlucky. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, especially with the home runs there. A guy allowed 33 last year, and then he had 4 up until today's game where he allowed 2. And that's even with, as I pointed out yesterday, we're kind of forecast at this start for Garrett Cole yesterday, reacting to Burns. Garrett Cole's K per 9 rate is down about 2. Swinging strike rate is down more than that, more percentage points than 2, like 3 or 4. Very similar to Corbin Burns in those same 2 areas. And also, like we talked about yesterday, you pointing it out, Frank, the elite class of starting pitchers as a whole has seemed less dominant this year. Like, there was, one of the points I kept driving home preseason and why I was fading pitching is because it seemed like there was a robust middle class returning as the juice ball went away and the overall environment became more favorable to pitchers. Pitching is still driven by the middle class now, but for a different reason than I thought. It's just that there's no upper class anymore, or at least not a well-defined one, not a very deep one. And, the middle class may not go as far into the position as I thought, but the position is still mostly defined by its middle class because there are a few standouts.
All right, a few other pitchers here that are coming back down to earth a little bit. Eduardo Rodriguez has allowed 4 runs in each of his past 2 starts. Did have 16 swinging strikes in this one at the Royals. Sonny Gray in the month of May, he's made 4 starts, 3.72 ERA with a 1.45 WHIP. And Mackenzie Gore had a rough outing against his former team. No revenge game, unfortunately. He allowed 10 hard hits in this one. 4 2/3, 7 hits, 3 runs, 4 walks, 2 homers allowed. And now in the month of May, 4.88 ERA, a 1.79 WHIP. Chris, any thoughts here on Gore, Sonny Gray, and Erod?
Well, I guess there was a little bit of a revenge game. The guy who he was traded for got a little revenge. Juan Soto had a 3-hit game, but
yeah, baby.
Yeah, but he's OPS back above 900 now.
Batting 260, Juan Soto all of a sudden. I mean, it's not where we hope he'd be, but it's pretty good.
What does Juan Soto evolve into, Chris, after Juan?
No, he just goes back to Juan. It was Juan Succo, Juan Soso. Now he's Juan Soto again. He's earned that right.
Love it.
Yeah, like, I don't know. Sonny Gray, 3.72 ERA, 25 Ks over 19 innings and 4 starts in May. That kind of sounds like Sonny Gray, right? Like I don't know about you guys, but I didn't think there was like an all new Sonny Gray. He's always had these really impressive stretches and then these really frustrating stretches. And I think the end result will be a pitcher who doesn't go deep into games, gets a lot of strikeouts, and is more or less fine when it comes to the ratio stats. So that's not surprising to me. Mackenzie Gore, what's that?
It counts for a lot more now than it used to, since
it's harder to find that. Yeah.
Since there aren't as many high-end pitchers anymore. The middle-end ones look better.
Mackenzie Gore still really looks like a sell high to me. Even the shine has come off a little bit with May, and I think May is probably a little more indicative of what we're going to see from him moving forward. Maybe not quite as bad as a 4.88 ERA, and certainly not a 1.79 whip. A 1.79 whip would be a trip back to AAA at some point. So I don't think that'll be as bad, but I think Mackenzie Gore is probably still a below average pitcher. I just don't think you can thrive being as fastball heavy as he is, even with a deceptive delivery and good velocity from a lefty. Like, I think the fastball is a good pitch, but he's still, throwing it 65% of the time. I don't think it's a viable approach for him. And I don't know if he has the secondaries, particularly, that the pitch to get righties out. I don't know if he has it.
With Mackenzie Gore, worth pointing out in this start, he more than doubled his slider usage. He used it 34%, and it had 7 whiffs and a 49% CSW, but I guess nothing else was really working for him because he still had 4 walks and allowed a lot of hard contact. And I think beforehand, Scott, we were talking, and you kind of comped him to Blake Snell, and that makes a lot of sense to me for Mackenzie Gore. I think we'll get some big strikeout games, but probably
the walks are too high. Snellacious.
Yeah.
Snellacious right now, Frank.
I do want to go back and he's been awful against lefties this year, which is really weird for a guy that throws lefty from a weird arm slot. 1195 OPS allowed against lefties in 41 plate appearances, 609 against righties. So did want to correct the record on that one at least.
All right. So maybe he'll actually get a little bit better if he can find a way to get lefties out. Pitching leftovers. Let's talk about Dylan Cease. He's turned in 3 quality starts in a row. This one at Cleveland, 6 innings, 2 runs, 3 strikeouts, but only 5 swinging strikes on 88 pitches. And that's back-to-back starts with single-digit swinging strikes for Dylan Cease. That both of them were against the Cleveland Guardians, who typically do make a lot of contact. Spencer Strider was the opposite. He had 22 swinging strikes, 6 innings, 4 runs, 2 earned with 11 strikeouts up against the Dodgers. And Alex Cobb, another quality start at the Twins, 7 innings, 3 runs, 8 strikeouts to 1 walk. Scott, any thoughts here on Cobb, Strider, and Dylan Cease?
Well, it was interesting. Strider's changeup use in this start. You had a good stat about that, Chris, before the show on Strider's changeup.
His very first major league start, he threw his changeup about 22% of the time. Since then, last May 30th, his first major league start.
Yeah.
Since then, he hadn't thrown 10% changeups at all in any start until last start. And now he's done it 2 starts in a row. It was 12% today. And he threw 1 changeup in his first 41 pitches, which was the first 2 innings, as you pointed out. After that, it was like a 20% usage. I think he used it 11 times on his final 60 pitches. So I don't think the math on that is 20%, but whatever it comes out to, 15%.
Yeah. So this, I saw real growth here from Strider in this start against a tough Dodgers lineup. They came out and they were just keyed in on the fastball. They were attacking it early in the count, and all 4 of his runs, 2 unearned, but 4 runs in the first 2 innings. And it looked like it might be a short night for Strider. And then he broke out this changeup to keep them off the fastball and ended up with an 11K outing in 6 innings. Very typical Strider start. So like he develops that extra weapon. He learns that he has that he can turn to when other things aren't working for him. Then maybe Spencer Strider gets even better. I do think we have to talk about Cease a little here too, because even though he's been getting better results lately, you mentioned, Frank, not getting a lot of whiffs. And I stand by what I said after his last start, I believe it was, where if Dylan Cease, the control hasn't really improved. He's still one of the, he still allows as many walks as anybody. And to survive that, he needs to be one of the top bat missers in the game. And he hasn't been that this year, not since that first start against the Astros.
He had at least 6 strikeouts in 20 of his 32 starts last season. He had more than 6 strikeouts, so 7 or more in 20 of 32 starts last season. He hasn't had more than 6 strikeouts in a start since his second of the season, so April 5th. That is 9 starts in a row, 9 starts in a row now with 6 or fewer strikeouts after he had at least 7 in 20 of 32 last year. I don't know what the explanation is here. Slider whiff rate on every pitch is down like just a little bit. And it could be that just everything is less effective than it was last season for some reason. But it's certainly concerning, especially because he has not been able to sustain the improvements on hard contact he made last season, where he was 383 expected WOBA on contact in 2021, 313 last year, one of the best marks for any starting pitcher, back up to 389 this year. So, we're dealing with small sample sizes, even over a full season when it comes to quality of contact for a pitcher, but certainly looks like last year was the outlier and he hasn't doing anything to make up for it.
Again, that is Dylan Cease. Let's get into a few hitting leftovers. Josh Young went 2 for 4 with his 11th home run, added 3 RBI. Paul Goldschmidt, 2 for 4 with a double dong. He's up to 9. Tommy Edman continues his hot month. He went 2 for 3 with a double, a triple, and 3 RBI. All of a sudden, he's up to a 285 batting average, 827 OPS. Corbin Carroll stays hot, went 3 for 4 with 2 doubles and an RBI. Juan Soto, we mentioned it, 3 for 4 with a sock and a shoe in his return to Washington, his 9th homer and his 5th steal. Now in the month of May, he's batting 343 with 4 homers, 4 steals, and a 1116 OPS. Xander Bogaerts snapped an 18-game homerless streak. He went 2 for 5 with his 7th homer. Gunnar Henderson, baby steps. He went 2 for 4 with his 5th homer. It came off of Garrett Cole. In his last 10 games, he's batting 294 with 2 doubles, 2 homers. Still does have a 37% strikeout rate during that time. Aaron Judge went 1 for 4 with a clutch game-tying homer off of Felix Bautista in the 9th. He's got 8 home runs in 13 games since returning from the IL. I thought it was pretty crazy that his barrel rate and expected slugging percentage are both better this year than they were last year, a season when he hit 62 home runs. So it's crazy, and it's only going to go up after this game, too. Vintage JD Martinez at it once again, went 1 for 5 with his 9th home run. He's got 5 homers in 11 games since coming back from the IL. Pete Alonso hit his league-leading 18th homer. Byron Buxton went 2 for 4 with a sock and a shoe, his 10th homer and his 5th steal. All 5 steals coming in the month of May. And that number 1 sleeper hitter for Scott White, Jorge Soler, went 2 for 5 with a double and his 13th home run of the season. A few bullpen updates for the White Sox. Kendall Graveman allowed a hit and a walk, but picked up his 4th save. For the Cardinals, Ryan Helsley allowed a hit and 2 walks, but escaped with his 6th save. For the Diamondbacks, one day it's this, one day it's that. And today, it was Miguel Castro who got the save. It was his 5th of the season. Andrew Chafin got 2 outs in the 8th before being relieved by Scott McGuff, who got the final out of that inning. For the Orioles, Yanier Cano threw 2 more scoreless innings with 2 strikeouts. I mentioned earlier, Felix Bautista gave up a game-tying home run, but did strike out 3. For the Yankees, Michael King pitched the 9th with the Yankees down 1 at the time, and then he pitched the 10th with the game tied. Did not allow that automatic runner, ghost runner. I think someone tweeted at me today, Scott, and called it a Manfred Man.
Yeah, the Manfred Man, I think is my favorite. I don't know if you given how you guys are on Team Name Tuesdays, I don't know if you actually get that reference. The Manfred Man and his Earth Band.
What is that?
Their number 1 hit from like 1970 something, Blinded by the Light.
I know that.
I mean, I thought it was clever even without a musical tie-in.
But it's got levels.
Yeah,
it's got layers.
Like an onion.
Love it.
Layers, Jerry.
Sweet smelling onion.
Speaking of those Yankees, though, I still believe that Michael King is their best reliever. It's just, will we get to a point that they can use him on back-to-back days? For the Royals, Scott Barlow was unavailable. Aroldis Chapman picked up his second save. For the Padres, Josh Hader picked up his 12th. For the Giants, Camilo Doval struck out the side for his 13th save, 10 of those coming in May. For the Rockies, Pierce Johnson came in with a 2-run lead. He gave up 1 run, but did escape with his 10th save. And Paul Sewald picked up his 10th save as well. To stream or not to stream, we'll start with Wednesday. And looking up and down the list, we mentioned James Paxton yesterday at the Angels. I think Cal Quantrill. No, not Cal Quantrill. He's okay. Quantrill against the White Sox is fine.
I said I don't think Kopech's good, but I think you can use him in this one against the Cleveland.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. If you're really desperate, I think Zach Greinke against the Tigers is okay.
And James Paxton probably doesn't belong in the streaming conversation, but as long as he's there, yes.
On Thursday, it's a smaller slate of games, and Braxton Garrett is pitching well, but he's in Coors Field.
Yeah.
So I don't really like that. JP Sears at the Mariners, I think, is okay.
It's the best you're going to do, but it's
yeah.
Like, he's almost certainly not going to get you a win, and that's the most valuable pitching stat of all. But he may give you some strikeouts. Sure.
Yep. And I know he recently threw, I think it was 6 shutout innings against the Mariners, so at least he has that. We're going to wrap there for Scott and Chris. I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning in to Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. We'll be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.